Hi, I'm Rooter, the founder of Solend. Something not many people know about me is that I can solve a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds.
Welcome to Solana Insights. I'm your host, Moo, and today we'll be chatting with Rooter from Solend. Solend is a DeFi protocol for lending and borrowing on the Solana blockchain. Solend allows anyone with an internet connection to earn interest by lending their crypto assets and allows them to use their deposits as collateral for borrowing. Welcome to the show, Rooter.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What's up, man? So tell me more about your Rubik's Cube. Can you do it blindfolded though?
I can actually, yeah, but not super good at it.
All right.
And actually, a little known fact about the team is a couple of us met at a cubing competition back in the day. And yeah, so pretty cool, like backstory.
A Cuban competition? What is that?
Rubik's Cube competition.
Oh, Rubik's Cube competition. Damn, that's some
Yeah.
hardcore stuff, man. There's a formula, right, to solving the Rubik's Cube. I don't know how to solve one myself.
Yeah, there's like some step-by-step procedures that you can follow, and you have to memorize some what they're called algorithms, like series of steps that can solve a certain scenario.
See.
So it doesn't take too much to be able to solve one, uh, but it takes a lot of practice to get like fast.
Okay. So it's more of a muscle memory thing.
Yeah, I guess so at this point.
Nice, man. Cool. So you mentioned that you met your team back at a competition. When was
Yeah,
this?
some of them we know each other from that. Uh, it's a pretty a while back. Like probably over like around 10 years ago, like around the.
Damn. That's super long. 10 years. Okay. And then, but you guys had no idea you'd be working together, right?
Yeah, we didn't. So yeah, I mean, we weren't like super close back then. Like I met them and kind of knew of each other, and then it wasn't until later when, like, yeah, sometime last year we like reconnected and
Hmm.
decided to work together.
Nice. So Solend was started, I think, middle of last year. Am I correct?
Yeah, around like April, May of last year,
April, May.
2021.
Wow, that's super early. So that's like OG days. Like nothing was in Solana yet.
I guess some people may view it that way. I like, I don't consider myself like, super OG or whatever, because it's only like a year, right?
Yeah.
But I guess things move very quickly, and yeah, there was like a lot less stuff back then. But I guess Serum was around, Radium had launched recently, Orca had launched recently.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, there was no like Magic Eden yet, and not
Oh yeah,
that
for
many
real.
NFTs. But I think around there, like DGen Ape Academy was like one of the first launches that like our team participated in, because we're like, oh, like we gotta like, dog food stuff in the Solana ecosystem. Like, let's mint this. And then obviously like the mint failed and we like stayed up the next day to do it again. Um, and yeah, lots of stuff went wrong. There's also like Solamas. Yeah, we had some fun with all
Llamas,
the
damn.
NFT stuff.
Are you sure it was just dog fooding and not hoping you snagged like a BAYC?
I guess both, but yeah, definitely part of it is like, because some of the early team members of Solend were like somewhat new to crypto, like they had been
Mm.
following it for a while, but didn't like, weren't like, didn't go full deep into it yet. So this was kind of a way to, get up to speed with the culture, like, understand the degen like mentality, like you got to be an
Degen
ape, be
mentality.
an ape to build products for apes, right?
This is true, man. This is true, man. So you met up the team again last year. You kind of pulled them together. What was your pitch since you're not from crypto or Web3?
Well, so I've been working in crypto for a while, for a couple of years actually, and basically I was like, hey, I'm starting like this new project, need a team, like we're fundraising for it, had some investors lined up and whatnot. Do you wanna be a part of this journey? And
Hmm.
yeah, I asked a bunch of people in my network, and yeah, a couple of people were interested. They were like, in between jobs or like thinking of leaving, and it just happened to work out. that yeah, they were available to hop on the train, I guess.
Okay. Were you able to give them like a super attractive pay to start?
At the start, actually, like a bunch of us didn't take any salary, and we
Oh.
only had like equity. But then we ended up like, so I just like funded it myself with like the
Mm.
initial amounts that we needed to just like get off the ground, and we got a little bit of grants from, or not grants, but like we won some hackathon prizes. Um,
Oh.
I think around like 20 to 30K. So that was
Okay.
helpful to like get started. Um, and then, yeah, we didn't end up getting any grants, unfortunately. We were, because we ended up raising or like going to raise money,
Mm.
then like the grants were like canceled because they, prefer to give them to teams that,
Don't have money.
like, you know, yeah, exactly.
Poor
But yeah,
teams.
we ended up getting the money in like a couple months later. And then from then on, we were pretty set.
All right, cool. And back then, VC money was a lot cheaper, right? I think now it's kind of drying up.
Compared to now, yeah. I mean, I hear deals they've slowed down a lot for sure. I think they're still being done, but it's just at way lower valuations. But yeah, it was pretty crazy last year, and actually, like, it got even crazier later, like earlier this year, I would say, like 6 months ago. That's when it was like
November?
really, really crazy. But
November was the peak,
hmm?
right? So I think people are still like hyped up that it might go further up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, November, even like I don't know, January, there were some pretty massive raises that were happening.
Mm-mm. Did you guys end up like raising a second round?
So we didn't do a second like VC round, but we did do an IDO.
Yeah, with your
In
tokens.
what was it? I think it was November. Yeah, when we launched our token. So all of
Oh
those
man,
funds
you
belong to
caught the
the DAO.
peak.
Yeah, I guess it's like good and bad in a way. Where like, yeah, we raised a healthy amount. We raised 26 mil, which is all in the DAO treasury.
Hmm.
I guess the double-edged sword is that Sol has been like only down since then, and so are
Yep.
most Solana tokens.
Yep.
So it's like the chart looks really bad because we launched at like the peak of everything. But
Yep.
yeah,
Everyone's down bad, bro.
yeah.
All right, cool, man. So I think I read somewhere that your team had like 1,001 in terms of monthly leisure expense or something. I can't remember, and I pinged you about it. I'm like, oh, why the extra $1?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, we did like a team offsite. So the whole team is remote, and we, never see each other in person. But we did this one trip, uh, and as part of the trip, we gave everyone like a stipend, so they can spend it on food or
Whatever.
like whatever. And this
Yeah.
area had like a casino, so it's like go and gamble it if you want. You can try to double it up or just like get a massage or like buy some nice food.
Mm.
But yeah, I guess the reason for the extra dollar is that there's another company that had a similar kind of budget for an offsite, and they had a budget of $1,000, and we were courting we were trying to hire this guy who ended up joining that other company, and I guess kind of as like an inside joke, we decided to make our stipend like $1 more than theirs, just as like a
Just
funny
rubbing
joke.
salt in the wound.
Yeah, I
Cool,
mean,
man.
yeah.
So how big was the team back then when you had this offsite?
I think we were like 7 or 8 people roughly.
All right, is it the same size, or you guys hired a bit more since then?
So we're 9 people right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you guys are completely decentralized. So there's no office, there's no space to work in.
Yeah, we're completely remote, distributed across the world as well. So we have like people in various different time zones, which definitely makes it interesting to run a startup and
Yeah.
to collaborate. But it's worked out so far, and yeah, we have to make some sacrifices sometimes, right? Like sometimes some people have
Yeah.
to take late meetings that kind of run into dinner. Otherwise,
Hmm.
others have to take like really early morning calls. But we've like adjusted our schedules so that it works out.
It's crazy, man. So my team's international too. I barely I barely remember what time it is locally anymore. Uh, and I have to take like 2 to 3 naps every day now just to stay awake. I don't know if that's the same for
Oh
you.
damn. No, it's not bad for me actually. So I'm in Asia time zone.
Hmm.
And what I've done is I'll get up at like 5 a.m. these days and start my meetings then. That way, I can meet with people in other parts of the world that without going like too late for them. But the sun rises super early. It rises around like 4:45, four like between 4:30 and 5 a.m. Um, so it's kind of nice to like wake up with the sun anyway, just because it's
Hmm.
summertime. So the sun is rising a lot earlier than usual.
Does that mean in the winter you're going to be waking up way later?
We'll see. Like when I was here during the winter, it our time zone difference wasn't as bad, but we've since added people in the Eastern time zone, so it makes it a bit like harder. So
Hmm.
I didn't have to wake up as early before.
All right. And how would you say, working with a completely decentralized or international team is versus working with a centralized team in an office?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely pros and cons. I think like one thing I really like is just having my own space and no commute time
Mm.
and no having to go for like find a meeting room. Uh, like I don't know if you've worked in an office, but that was kind of like the bane of your existence when
Yeah.
you have to go to a meeting room and then someone's previous meeting is going overtime a little bit and you have to wait for them before you can get in, or you have a hard time finding which floor, like which corner of the building it's in. And also like at offices, meeting rooms would like always be overbooked, right? Because there's so many like interviews happening and one-on-ones
Mm.
that is just like, yeah, really hard to find a meeting room is like a constant struggle. So all of that just like poof went away when COVID happened and we went to work remotely. So that's definitely very nice. But of course, and that I'm sure everybody knows this, but it's like you miss out on the water cooler kind of moments of magic type thing, like just
Yeah.
hanging out
Culture.
or having a drink or something and just coming up with like creative ideas. So that's missing a little bit, but we have these offsites like maybe twice a year we're aiming for
Okay.
so that we can have those kinds of moments still.
Okay. So the solution is really just having offsites to kind of link up. Was it hard during COVID?
Well, I guess we started like Solend during COVID and everything was just fully remote. And then we didn't meet up in person until about half a year later when things had kind of like started to open back up. We went to Breakpoint in Lisbon.
Yep.
And over there is like open. So yeah.
Okay. So if I would ask you the question, are you happy with where you are today? What would you say?
Just happy in what way?
I don't know, personally, as well as the company.
I see. I mean, so I guess yeah, one interesting thing about the word happy is kind of like no one can be happy all the time, right? Because you need to have moments of struggle to feel like a feeling of satisfaction, right? So even though you might not be happy when like climbing a mountain, you still like feel good at the end of it, right? So in the same way, I think like we have a long way to go still. We're not like at the top of the mountain yet, but it is like you know uh satisfying and fulfilling work, I think, to
Yeah.
work on Solend, giving people access to financial services, building a really good product that has really low fees that people aren't priced out of using.
Mm.
So and yeah, we've done like pretty well in as far as things go. We have like a decent number of users, decent TVL. Things could always be better, but things could definitely always be worse, right? So yeah, I'd say it's like a pretty decent spot.
Nice. Was there like a aha moment or like a yes, finally? Like, was there a moment where you felt like Solon was gonna make it?
Hmm. I guess in a way, like right at the start, I figured we were onto something. So as probably some people are aware, we built a prototype of Solend during a hackathon, during the
Then you
Solana
won the
season hackathon.
hackathon, right?
We won not the overall, we won first place in the DeFi track,
Okay.
which is still pretty good. And yeah, I mean, it was very clear from that hackathon that we were onto something. And it was after that that I decided, like, okay, let's double down on this. Like, let's approach VCs to get some funding. Let's get a team around this, and let's get to market quickly, because there were no established lending protocols yet. Like, there was no clear winner yet. There was, like, Oxygen was on mainnet for a while, but it doesn't really, never really did much. And then there are a bunch of other lending protocols that, like, had announced that they would be working on this, or maybe some that had, like, launched, but there was no, like, Compound or Aave on Solana yet. So it was pretty clear that we could, like, be that. And I knew that our team had really good work experience. We were all very talented and, like, can ship quickly. And we understood, like, the problems with lending protocols and how to improve upon, like, previous iterations. So I guess, like, yeah, from the start, I've really, like, genuinely felt that we could win, like, the lending market on Solana. So it was pretty satisfying to, like, see it play out, and also extremely quickly, right? Like, we started working on this in, like, May, launched to mainnet in August, and then by, like, November or something, we were, like, the #1 lending protocol. So it was on Solana. So it's pretty quick.
I didn't know that. That's super fast. I mean, like, there are other competition out there. So I think, like, back then I was looking for lending protocols as you guys. I think Port. I can't remember who else, but it wasn't clear back then. So it's crazy how fast um, your lending protocol basically grew. And I think the space is not even, like, completely solidified yet. You may have a lead today, but I think as time goes on, you have more and more big guys coming in. I think you posted
Yeah.
recently that in the deck space, if I'm not wrong, like, suddenly, like, Stepan's, like, rank 1. That's insane. Like, overnight, out of nowhere, bam.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, the race isn't over till it's over, and, like, it never ends, right?
Never over.
And then, yeah, for the Dex thing, that chart. So you're referring to a tweet that I had posted of showing, like, the step, or, like, Dex number of users. So that was, like, showing the number of users, not the volume. So I actually don't know. I wasn't able to find a volume chart, but yeah, I don't know if they're the #1 by volume, but it is pretty crazy how many users they have. But yeah, also similarly, like, Radium always led the Dex space
Yep.
in Solana, as far as, like, since I started looking at it, at least. And then Orca, despite being a really high quality project, I would say, like, the best UI in crypto that I've seen. Like, I think it's the best, like, swap interface ever.
Wow, that's high praise.
But they were always, yeah, they're super good at, like, usability. But they always lag behind Radium. And then suddenly, like, it just flipped, and Orca was doing insanely crazy volume. And the reason was because Stepin had integrated Orca for their in-app swaps. And for
Right.
whatever reason, they chose to use Orca and not, like, Serum or Radium or anyone else. Probably because they just had, like, the best developer documentation or something. So it only takes one thing to kind of, like, change the way the race is going. And then, of course, now Stepin has launched their own DEX and they're verticalizing, and so now, like, Orca isn't seeing that volume anymore. But it just takes, like, one event for the scales to be tipped. So
Easy
yeah,
come.
we're not resting on our laurels anytime soon. We're still working hard, trying to innovate, keeping an eye out for competitors and whatnot.
It's not an easy thing to do. So it sounds like you're a very hardworking guy, principled. Where do you think that came from? Like, do you think, like, family had an impact on who you are today?
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely would say that I'm quite principled and hardworking. I think actually a lot of it comes from prior work experience. So I've founded another company in the past, and my co-founder there is, like, ultra ethical. It was also a crypto startup, and he was just, like, so wanting to do things by the book, almost to the extent of, like, sometimes I felt like it was, detrimental because in the crypto space, everyone plays so fast and loose, right? So if you're not doing that, you're kind of at a disadvantage. But I think like that rubbed off on me, and just like seeing how ethical and like how important like ethics and morals are, because it sticks around, right? Like one thing I've heard is like the tech space and even the crypto space is even smaller, right? But the
Mm.
tech space as a whole is pretty small. And if you're going to spend your whole career in it, that's like, you know, decades, not just a couple of years. And people will remember if you like do, shady stuff. So the
Oh
best
yeah.
way, like the game theoretic optimal thing is just to be like ethical and moral. Discounting the fact that it's just the right thing to do anyway. But, even, even besides that, like it's like better for your own career to do the right thing.
Bro, I love the way you explain that, man. Like, first, it is the right thing to do, but also on a game theory perspective, it is also the best thing to do. And I think it's true. I fully agree with that. I'm not sure if you played this game, but like, there's this like super like old school. I don't know if it's Flash, can't be Flash, something along those lines of Flash. But they pretty much created this game where it's based on game theory, and you either cheat or you don't cheat, right? And this you have this different sort of profiles kind of playing against you, or AI, if you may, or whatever. But what's cool is that if you play this game multiple times, if you cheated all the time, you would actually come out in front at the start. But in the long run, you actually end up losing really, really badly because the guys that played the honest game, they didn't get a really flashy start, but they ended up and just to add some details, it's not that you are completely honest and you always get taken advantage of. You have to be smart. So if like someone cheated, you would stop playing with them, or you would cheat back. If someone didn't cheat, then you continue to collaborate. And it showed that that kind of personality, the guys who are pretty much always open to collaboration, don't cheat, but are smart enough not to get taken advantage of multiple times, they ended up winning the long run. So that was really cool. It's a game that sort of, in my opinion, explained karma, which is game theory style. So yeah,
Yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about. It's with like the cartoony kind of
yeah, yeah,
illustration,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
This
exactly.
web-based thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was yeah. I played that game as well, and it actually kind of formed my thoughts on this as well. Like yeah, it definitely was quite poignant. I would definitely recommend, if you can figure out what it was called, I definitely recommend people to play around with it.
yeah. I'll go do some research. Maybe I'll leave a link, but yeah, yeah, super, super relevant.
Yeah.
Right, cool. So on the line of, like all these like game theory being principled and stuff, there's this whole saga of the Solend whale, or like the Solana whale, whatever you want to call it. And for context for people who are not aware of this, basically there's this guy that I think borrowed, and correct me if I'm wrong, reader, I think borrowed like close to 100 million worth of soul tokens at that point, and
Yes,
was
they
very.
were they were depositing like 5 million. What was it? 5.7 million Sol. It was worth like $170 million or something. And then they were borrowing $108 million of USDC.
Okay, so they deposited Sol and withdrew USDC. Got it. And it was
Yeah.
super close to liquidation at one point, right?
Yeah. So basically, Sol was at like 26 or $27, and actually like hit 25 point something at one point. And their liquidation price was at the start 22.27. But it was like slowly ticking upwards throughout the course of the time because interest was accruing that was making their liquidation threshold go up slightly over time.
Okay. And to me, okay, so like I think the big worry was that I think our DeFi on Solana couldn't absorb the entire loss, but you guys kind of figured out that if we push it out to decentralized exchanges, that would be a little bit better. And I think in that sort of, dilemma, things started to happen. So one of the biggest things that became really quickly controversial was the vote. I think your very first DAO vote, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I guess basically what happened is like, yeah, so this whale, they to go way back, like they first started using Solend back in like February, where they deposited like $200 million. At the time, we had like $2 billion of deposits or like $1 billion of deposits. So, it was sizable, but it wasn't like anything too crazy. And then over time, they borrowed more and more USDC, and then the markets kind of, crashed recently. And then we would like check in on this account periodically. Yeah. Then on June uh, 15th, we realized that they were, very substantially large position on the platform. They were something like 90% of the Sol deposits and like 80 something percent of the USDC borrows.
That's massive.
And basically, what we feared was that Sol, if it continued to drop, because it was dropping so much already, and if it dropped just a little bit more, then they would get liquidated. Solend has partial liquidation, so only 20% would be liquidated in the first liquidation. But in total, there would be like $120 million of liquidations that would have to happen. But the first like tranche of $21 million, like dexes would not be able to handle that kind of a sale. If you try to sell like $2 million, just with that, you're gonna slip the price by like 5%, right?
Yeah.
So if you try to sell like 10 times more, it's just gonna be disastrous.
Yeah.
And basically, most of the liquidators on Solend work on chain only, just based on like, because we interact with liquidators in our Discord who ask questions, or we see some of their activity on chain sometimes when we look at like, liquidation activity. Basically, like all of them almost would liquidate and then immediately sell on a DEX. And so what we feared is that like if that amount of liquidity were to hit the market in a market sale, it would just it would cause like a insanely lucrative liquidation opportunity that people would be incentivized to spam the network for. Additionally, it would also cause a massive arbitrage between whatever exchange it was sold on and other exchanges. And these things combined with the fact that like Sol would only be hitting this price if it was like going down to begin with, which tends to attract like additional activity across the network as a whole and cause network issues. We were pretty worried that like the network would become like super slow, and that there would be a bunch of like failed liquidations and whatnot. And in the worst case, the network could go down for a couple hours, which has happened in the past.
No, not again.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at like options. So we tried to get in contact with the whale. We initially reached out to through DMs to like our investors and to funds that we knew were like in Solana, to ask if like it was them or if they knew who this was, but no luck there. And then we took to Twitter. So we posted publicly like, hey, this account is going to get liquidated soon. Like, please pay back your loan. No response either. We also sent an on-chain message. People don't really check necessarily, but hopefully, if someone sees like a transaction on their account that they didn't expect, they would maybe see that. But yeah, none of that was working. So it basically looked like the only option that we had is like we can either do nothing and let catastrophe happen, or we could have the liquidation happen OTC instead, because over the counter, you can easily sell that much. I mean, not like super easily, but it's like a much more reasonable thing, and it wouldn't cause like such an insane amount of chaos. So yeah, given the situation at hand, we decided to propose that. It's not a decision that we take lightly. Like it's definitely something that's up to the Solend community. And I guess, yeah, this you point out this is our first DAO vote. So Solend is quite a new-ish project. We launched, as I mentioned earlier, in August of last year. So it's been almost 1 year now. And yeah, basically like things don't get decentralized in a day, right? It takes time. Even Bitcoin was centralized from the start. So we didn't have like a DAO already set up. So that had to be the first one, which is an interesting first vote, right?
Super
Yeah,
interesting first vote.
yeah, basically the gist of what happened, and I'll pause there so you can ask me some questions if anything was
Sure.
unclear.
I think it's pretty clear, but I think what I was trying to figure out is it's not easy making such a decision, right? Especially considering the philosophies, if I may, on what crypto is, because we're trying to be this like decentralized kind of place where it's your wallet, your key, so you get to control your funds, and you don't want people controlling your money. And in this scenario, sure, we're kind of tweaking some some of your, I don't know, rules, if you may say it that way, on how things will be liquidated. But I think what was most pressing or alarming for a lot of people is like, hey, like Solend is kind of like taking over the account, and that's kind of a huge red flag. And I think it takes a lot of gut, but there's a lot of dilemma there, I would think, because you're not only trying to help the people, but you're also kind of going against the philosophy. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then for me, what was really interesting is seeing the backlash of the community. And I think if we didn't do anything, it would have, like gone down this huge, huge spiral. But you guys had the courage again to now like kind of veto the vote, or like a huge portion of the vote. So like, wow, like when I saw the entire episode, I was like, man, if I do not want to be ruder right now. And I'm just curious, like, what was your thought process? Like, how were you able to kind of like make those decisions in that super stressful scenario?
Yeah, between a rock and a hard place is like the perfect way to describe it. Uh, it was basically, a real life trolley problem. And for us at Solend, if, when a real life trolley problem arises, our users come first. We would rather save uh, the funds of a bunch of retail users that have small deposits who they were unable to withdraw their funds because basically what happened was so much USDC was being borrowed out that the utilization of the pool was at 100%, meaning that like people couldn't withdraw their funds. So a bunch of users were stuck in there, and they were just like waiting uh, and kind of powerless, like just waiting for the inevitable to happen, kind of like the trolley slowly approaching, and they can't like get out. So yeah, basically, very, very tough choice, but I feel like it's the only choice that we could have made because we can't just let like $100 million of people's funds just like evaporate because out of the chaos there could be a lot of like bad liquidations that leave uh, bad debt, like under collateralized debt, which we have an insurance fund that can pay some of it out. But I think at this scale, it might have been enough to like completely deplete the insurance fund, and people would still be at a loss, right? So
You
just
it's
we
that
weren't
big.
willing to gamble. We weren't willing to gamble our users' funds just to like preserve,
Mm,
some principles, right? But that said, like we are still committed to building DeFi and building like with these values in mind. It's just that we want to do it over time. We think that that's like the only like rational way to do it. Because if you're just completely decentralized from the beginning, you can't like get anything done, right? Like DAOs have been shown to be extremely inefficient at getting stuff done. So
yep.
in my opinion, like it's better to build something worth decentralizing than to decentralize a flawed product, right?
Oh man, that's such a good line right there. I fully agree. And to be honest, like I'm gonna go a bit more extreme. Like I really hate it that people keep pushing for this like decentralized narrative at the start. I'm all for decentralization. I'm all for like distributing the power, but like you need someone like to lead the pack at the beginning to build something that's worth decentralizing later. Because as you correctly mentioned, like when you start there, it's super inefficient and you basically go in multiple directions. It's really hard to do things. So spot on, man. Like super spot on. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
and I like
So
to add like there's
mm,
this token safe harbor proposal that was made by Commissioner Hester Pierce from the SEC, where basically they're proposing that like there would be like a 3-year kind of timeline for projects to get to the point of decentralization. And I think
mm,
this kind of thing makes quite a bit of sense because, yeah, as mentioned, like you can't just launch something fully decentralized on day one.
Yeah.
like, Bitcoin's hash rate was, fully centralized in the beginning. It took a very long time to be, quote, like sufficiently decentralized. And yeah, I think a lot of people take it for granted that like, oh, things should just be decentralized on day one. But the reality is that it's like hard, man. It's impossible.
Impossible is the right word. I think people, and not only that, I think it's like more of like moral values, or you kind of always pitch, or you kind of say things if it sounds right, right? But when it happens to you and it's difficult, then that's when you really start to think, do I really want decentralization, or do I want assistance in this round? Like, I mean, even in Solana, right, hit home really hard. We had like a whole hack on a wormhole, and people used to hate VCs. Like VCs are the bad guys, they blah blah blah. And then wormhole like got hacked, and then like Jump Capital came in, and people like, all right, maybe VCs are not so bad after all, you know? So it's different when it hits you versus
Yeah.
other people. Ah,
Yeah,
man.
that's a really good point. Like, because a lot of the users that had their funds stuck and that were like waiting, helplessly for Sol to just like liquidate, to go down and like liquidate as well and cause chaos. They were
Yeah.
all like asking us, please do something, right? Like I got some messages like, oh, I put my mom's money in there, like I put
Exactly.
my life savings in there, like
Exactly.
please like forget the haters, like just do something, right? You gotta like have the balls to do it or whatever. um, and then most of the criticism came from Twitter, where people, they don't even use Solend, they don't even use Solana, a lot of the time, and they're just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like critiquing from the sidelines,
Mm-hmm.
and saying it should be this way or that way, but really not like appreciating the dilemma that was, that we're facing.
Yeah. So super spot on, man. To all the users out there, like, yeah, ultimately be kind, right? Like, when it becomes your problem, then you start to see things differently. So stop pitchforking, stop being keyboard warriors and stuff like that. All right, cool, man. That's pretty cool. Real talk. Let's go on to some more fun questions. I'm gonna change the gears a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your weirdest talent?
Probably. I mean, apart from the Rubik's cube thing,
It's not weird, dude. That's
it's pretty
cool.
weird, I guess. Yeah, another weird talent. Putting me on the spot here.
I am. Or if you don't want to
Um,
answer weirdest talent, what is the most embarrassing thing you've done in your life?
well, I guess a weird thing that I do sometimes is, I'll just like practice holding my breath. So I really like the ocean
Oh,
and like water sports and whatnot.
okay.
And sometimes I'll just like, it's very useful to be able to hold your breath, but I would see it as like a challenge, and I would just like randomly, just like start holding my breath, which some people thought was kind of funny. So I guess that's a pretty weird one.
I might start doing that soon as well. That sounds actually quite fun. So what's your record right now?
So I've gone like 2 minutes and like 15 seconds,
Oh,
and I have like this pulse oximeter and also like a fitness device that tracks my heart rate and also my like blood oxygen level. So it's really interesting to use that while you're holding your breath, because you can see your
yeah.
heart rate like go down or fluctuate, and then you can also see your blood oxygen level like drop. And also it's like a safety thing. Like you don't want to have
Pass out.
too low of a blood oxygen level for too long, because
Yeah.
it's just not good for you. So I'll usually like kind of well, usually I just can't. Your body just like tells you take a breath, but
Mm-mm-mm.
um I know like when to stop pushing, sort of.
Damn, bro, you're hardcore. So what? So you said 2 minutes, 15 seconds? What's the average for like a, I don't know, like a regular human being?
I think with like no practice, maybe like between a minute to 2 minutes, like depending on how hard you can push yourself, right?
Hmm.
And I also noticed for myself, it really depends on the day. Like if I'm really tired and low energy, I can hold my breath a lot
Ah.
longer, actually, because it's like
Oh,
I'm not using much energy anyway. Like I think that 2 minutes, I hit that when I was like about to go to sleep, anyway, and like my heart rate was really low at like 50 beats per minute or something, because I was, yeah, about to like fall asleep anyway.
That's counterintuitive. I would imagine that if your body's in prime condition, so you're like all pumped up and stuff, that would give you a longer breath. But I guess that makes sense. If your body's like shutting down, then that's where you can hold it longer because it's not using as much. That's cool, man. All right, worst
Yeah.
trade ever since you've been in crypto for quite a while, it seems.
Worst trade. Well, I did bet on the flippening back in like 2017. I was like,
Oh
yeah, ETH is
no.
so much better than Bitcoin, obviously. So I went like long ETH, short Bitcoin. And then at one
Oh
point I'm like, all right,
no.
I was wrong. I gotta exit this. Or maybe I'm just too early, you know? That was a pretty bad trade.
Was that the reason why you eventually opened up a lending protocol?
No. Although like I was always really fascinated by lending.
Okay.
And was frustrated that like the like compounded Aave on Ethereum
Mm,
didn't have support for a lot of assets. So I really wanted to like have, isolated pools and permissionless isolated pools.
mm.
And then the other thing is that they're like super expensive to use, right? Like at one point
Yeah.
it would cost $300 US just to, deposit or withdraw some
Hey,
tokens
it's like less than $1 now, apparently.
on Ethereum.
I
Yeah,
think
I guess the
so.
gas fees are so low right now. Uh,
No one's
but
there
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So they eventually made it, but for the wrong reasons. I'm not a maxi by any means, so I don't wish them any ill, but it's just hilarious how they got there. And I guess hopefully things will get better once the bull market returns, then we all can start celebrating again.
Yes.
Cool, man. All right. So the last section I have is something I call rapid fire. So this is basically me spitting out different words and you responding with just a single sentence. So don't overthink it.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
Hmm.
Ready.
Solana summer.
Let's see. I just think of a lot of like NFT stuff going on and like DeFi was doing well. Yeah, good
One
times.
sentence,
That's
man.
when
One
we launched.
sentence.
All right. True, true.
Good times.
Yeah, good times.
All right. It's good times. Favorite Pokemon.
Um, Tyranitar.
Utility NFT.
I would say like how to put into words. Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. What does that mean?
Yeah. I'm pretty bearish like utility. I think anytime NFTs come out with utility, everyone just like dumps it because it can never live up to the hype. Um,
Okay.
and all the NFTs that actually do well just tease utility without ever actually delivering.
Yes. Yes. I saw that post recently and it said the best projects basically know how to keep this teasing going on, and that's how they make a lot of money or keep pumping it for price. It's sad, but it is true. And I hope it
Yeah, it's
changes
kind of
one
like
day.
a lot of like GameFi as well. Not a knock because I know you're working on something, but like once the game launches and it's like is people have played some really high quality games. It's very hard for a
Hmm.
small team that raised a ton of money and has to like suddenly scale to like deliver in a matter of like months or years, right? Especially because games take like 5 years to make sometimes. So
5 years and a huge team behind them. Usually you have a lot of backup as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
and a ton of like industry experience.
Yeah.
So it's hard
Fully
to
agree.
match that.
Yeah. All right. Cool stuff. This one's gonna hit close to home. Whales,
Whales, we love whales. We just not too big of a whale, We like small whales.
right? Um, Apple or Android?
Mm, Interesting. So I actually kind of prefer Android, but I use an iPhone right now.
All right. So which one?
I still kind of like Android better, but it's
Okay.
using an
So
iPhone right now, But Solana Mobile.
yes, that's the answer. That's the real answer. Crypto influencers.
I like Tuba. It's pretty good.
Nice. Rug pulls.
Um, it's unfortunate. gives crypto a bad name.
Women in Web3.
Yeah, need more women in Web3, more women in tech in general.
All right. Last one, college education.
Interesting. Not necessary, but still very good.
Fantastic. Love it. Cool beans. So
Cool beans.
if cool beans indeed. If I were to ask you like what percentage would you put your success on luck versus hard work, how would you split it?
Hmm. Interesting. So there's like that what's it called? Like that misconception or whatever, like survivorship bias. All the people who, anyone who won the lottery is going to tell you, hey, just do what I did. It's so easy. You just got to walk into, a convenience store, buy a scratch ticket, and then you'll be successful. Like me. Just look at me, right? If I can do it, anybody can do it, right?
Mhm.
And in the same way, like everyone who is successful basically has to work hard. There's a prerequisite for success.
Yep.
But there's also a lot of luck involved. Like if you're very hardworking and super unlucky, then you're probably not going to be successful. So yeah, I admit that like there's definitely some luck. Like the timing couldn't have been better. Um, I just happened to find out about Solana at like a really great time before
Mm.
a massive like Solana bull run. I didn't know that it would happen. I knew that there's a chance,
No,
and
nobody did.
the tech is good. Yeah, but yeah, obviously I would not have been able to tell you what would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a lot of like, timing that contributed, and that timing was a lot of, some luck involved.
So what percentage would you put on luck?
Hmm. It's hard to say. Maybe like 50%.
All right, 50 is a good percentage. Half half. Perfect. All right, last question before I let you off. Who would you like to nominate to come on the podcast, Nick?
Let's see. Would be good. I guess Utaro from Orca would be interesting. I don't know if you were
Utaro from
talking to him
Orca.
already.
I have not actually. That'd be great.
Sure.
All right, we'll get him on. We get Orca on next. You can link me up and we'll make it happen. All right, man. That's pretty much it. So this is the end of the podcast. Thank you so much. It was really fun. I learned a lot, and I think we have a lot of principles and philosophies in common. So that's cool. I really appreciate your time and coming on to the show.
Great, thank you. And yeah, this was really fun. It's definitely a atypical kind of podcast that I've done. So yeah, thanks for that.
Perfect, man. All right, thank you. Hey, people. I hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast. Our Solana Insights podcast is all about having real conversations. We talk to builders and users of Solana and make their stories available to all. To listen to more of our episodes, come find us on YouTube, Spotify, or Audius. And if you'd like to chat, hit us up on Reddit or Twitter. Solana Insights is a not-for-profit organization and is made possible by Player 2. Until next time, this is Moo, signing out.